Now, in our first segment on Tuesday, the 21st January 25, the Sierra Leone Meteorological Agency, SLMet, published its 2025 dry seasonal outlook for Sierra Leone, covering January to April 2025. It includes temperature trends, dust forecasts, potential risks, and actionable recommendations. Based on SLMet's historical data, meteorological models, and global climate patterns, the 2025 dry seasonal forecast poses significant challenges due to above average temperature and associated risks. Gabriel Parker, Deputy Director General and Head of Operations at the agency, joins us in the studio to take us through the agency's publication. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Now, with the launch of the seasonal forecast, can you tell us the key takeaways from that publication?
Yes, several takeaways. One is we firstly, when it comes to the temperature trend, because every year we have two seasons. Of course, for Sierra Leone, the European and other country have four. We have two seasons. So our mandate as meteorological service is to make sure that before the start of every season, we issue at a kind of like an outlook for people to understand what are they expecting. We did the last one for the rainy season, and then we've already done this one for the dry season. So the parameter we look into is just the temperature, because we are not really expecting it kind of rain at this particular time of period. Whenever we look into the rainfall itself. And then also we try to look at our satellite imagery, because now we have a lot of models to see the dust particle itself. So firstly, it's good for listeners and also for all of us here to know that we use 30 years data, because the tools that we use that we call a model is that you put your data and it tells you what you're expecting. So you start the year's data, and we try to position Sierra Leone into our traditional regions, that is the north, the east, the west, and the south, just for us to see what will be the complexion. And the 30 years that we use, we also try to train the data, because we use machine learning and AI. We are in we use from 1994 to 2022, and they will try to predict 2023. Because already 2023 has passed, we have a data. So we want to see whether the model is doing very well, and then a particular model predicted 2023 very well. So we use the model to predict 2024, and also for us to go into the 2025. So for the temperature, normally when it comes to prediction, it falls within three regions. One is you look whether it's going to be below normal, and then we have normal, and also above normal. And all of these are hinged on one parameter, which is you have to look at the average temperature for the past years. So the average temperature for the past 30 years, let's say for Freetown, used to be 28. So when we do a prediction, if the prediction falls below 28, they're going to say it's going to be below normal temperature. If it's 28, then it's normal. Then if it is above the 28, then it's going to be above normal. So, but when we did, of course, the outlook, of course, we observed that it's going to be above normal temperature for the whole region. That is in the east, west, north, and south in Sierra Leone. It's going to be above normal temperature. That is even places that used to be very cold, it's going to be cool, but not as cool as it used to be 30 years back. And then we also try to zoom into the regions to see what are the specifics, even when it comes to the above normal itself. We want to see those that record the highest temperature and then the lesser one. And we observed that the eastern region, it was very surprising to us. We record, of course, this above normal, but their temperature is going to be kind of lower compared to that of the northern part. The northern part, especially Makini, where we have our stations, we're going to record the highest temperature from this within the period under review. And that is a temperature within 35 on to 40 degrees Celsius. And I will tell you that last year is the second time that I've recorded 40 degrees Celsius. Because 80 degrees Celsius, like the AC you use in your room, is 6 degrees Celsius. We both know when it is 16, it's very cold. When you go to 22, 25, how it looks like. So we try to assert our temperature to the AC system. So you really understand what we are talking about here. And then you have, of course, the south and that of the western area and the coastal area, competing on the same temperature trend, that 29 degrees Celsius onto, for example, 35 during the daytime period. And we also observe that when it comes to the temperature itself, it's going to start with a cooling trend. and definitely. So you observe that in January the trend is very cool, but as we are proceeding to the end and then the start of February, the trend starts increasing, especially when you get now to March. Of course, it's going to get the temperature is going to increase, and then it's going to be very warm, very hot, and onto the April itself. So that's what we observed as far as the temperature trend is concerned, and then we also try to zoom into the dust particles because, of course, we have one.
So
only
just
one.
before we go to the dust particles,
Yeah.
how hot will it get for this first 4 months in this year?
So yeah, the hot is the numbers itself, like from January, let's say, to that of April, the marking, as I said, is going to be between 35 on to 40 degrees Celsius for the daytime. It's not like the morning hour, the daytime, 12 o'clock, midnight, on to forward. So, and then Freetown, and then that of I say that is the coastal area, the western and the south. It's going to still to be hot, but not as hotter as marking is going to be. Why the west the eastern part is also going to be hot, but less hotter than what is observed for the other regions, and that's what we see. And when we also try to zoom what's the cause of this itself, because we observe that I think reason being is that the eastern part, the vegetation is there, and it's going to create the ambience at least for the cooling trend, because we know naturally that we have the rainy season and the dry season caused by revolution or so, in science itself. So we know that when it's the period for the rainy season, the temperature trend is going to reduce drastically. When it's the period for, of course, the dry season, it's going to less rain itself. But because there are no trees, we cut down the trees, so the sun rays that gets to us, of course, definitely, not all of them can get back, because you have the dust particles, you have the greenhouse gases that can keep them. So sometimes at night, people can feel a kind of like a discomfort within those periods. So that's what we observe. It's not like anything like a cool or mild, but of course we know that during the morning hours it's going to be the cooling trend will start as going to the daytime, and then you have the temperature rising itself. Yeah.
Is there any challenge that it poses in that specific region?
Oh yes, a lot of challenge. No, in fact, I think all of us. One is going to cause a kind of like disturbance, especially like the cooling trend at night. It's not going to be fast cooling, because it's going to take like some time. So you see that some places, definitely, if you have your ACs, maybe some of us here or people that are listening, they have their ACs, so they will not feel it, much. But people that don't have, you see what happens. Of course, we are in Makeni with my brother. You are in Bo. You can see how the temperature trend was, and then the other risk also we see the challenge that it can face is the water resource itself. So because of the high amount of temperature and then evaporation taking place, so there are some rivers that used to have some streams around you, the volume are reduced, and also the water level reduced. And it's happening. I remember way back when most of us were young, we'd never know about boreholes. You just pay a local person that they can just dig maybe a few feet and then there's water. But now you see that you have to go deep and very deeper. But the only thing also with all of this challenge, there are also some opportunities, because when you have a high temperature trend, opportunity you have to go into renewable energy like the solar power. So if you have a solar power, like this time, some countries, you can use this to harvest, to have a lot of energy to generate. And then also we see that it also poses some challenges to the agricultural sector, because there's going to be a long dry spell itself. Because even during the dry season, if you have a short drop in temperature, it will rain. But even the last time, the rain over there was not even a measure, it's just a trace. It's just a drizzle and then it goes away. So a long temperature trend is there. So which means people need to be planting kind of like a drought-resistant crops that you think they can do well within high temperature. If not, if you're doing farming activities, they need to do a lot of irrigations, mechanized one, because you cannot expect me having like a 40 acre of land and then use your watering can. No, you have the mechanized one wherein you can apply the water, of course, to your crops. And also, even when it comes to animal health itself, because of temperatures, we observe that there are certain animals, they can produce, but it can even lead to their fertility, because whenever we want to bring this risk, we also talk with experts. And even like for the health sector, of course, the benchmark is there, like within the Met service, that particular temperature that you observed, there are recommendations and also risks that are associated with it. So with the temperature I've seen, like children and then of course the aged, of course, will be affected. Because in this temperature that we're saying, for example, it's heat wave, because if you're talking about the white man's land, when the record 27, 28, it's uncomfortable. But for us, we can adapt because it's something we've been exposed to. So these are some of the risks that we observe, and also we try to push on the recommendation, and so look into the Harmattan season. Because remember, people have been asking, are we really having the Harmattan? So the answer is yes. The only thing is like, it's not the Harmattan as we used to feel before.
Okay.
Because Harmattan has the features. The feature of Harmattan one is you're going to see a wind coming from the Sahara Desert. And it's been dominated within the northern part. And then you have a dust particle, and then a cold trend. But maybe we can come to that.
Yes, as we see ways to talk on the Harmattan. Earlier on, you mentioned some statistics in terms of numbers, as to the weather condition, also to speak. But again, what are some of the triggers? You mentioned the north, that of course is already prone to heat and what have you. Is it because it's mountainous? Is that the case? But again, tell us, what are the triggers? What are the key triggers that will lead to these conditions?
Yes, so there are several triggers, especially when it comes to urban heat. One, definitely, when you're looking through, has to do with the vegetation itself. So if you don't have much vegetation around your surrounding, then the sun the sun ray is going to hit you directly, because you know that the sun rays, trees, plants use it for what for them to get their food, And so what happened is that for those areas that we observe is that massive deforestation is one of the causes. And also if you have hilltops, if you are living in a particular area and then you have hills around you, what happened? Whatever heat comes in, they are being contained within what is really happening. And then also, the way people are also building their houses. Well, everything has to do with the human activities. We are cutting down trees, the waste, and also the use of old vehicles, because we have those greenhouse gases. These are all the things that are really effective. But really for us here, the deforestation is one of the key factors. And for example, in the north, the only thing, like within the science itself, the sun stay a lot at the northern part before coming down. So if the sun stay a lot, it starts from the east, coming through the north, and then to the west itself. So if the north we are in, it's going to take a lot of time, like 12 o'clock coming down, and then if you cut down your trees, so you have a lot of sun that is going to, of course, affect you. And I was also looking through, like, for example, the eastern part. So when we zoom into, for example, our model, and then try to look into the Landsat, you can see the amount of vegetation so much when it comes to the eastern parts, but other areas, you see that, of course, like, it's not all the part of north, but for example, you had the likes of the Kabbalah and some areas, of course, their temperature is not going to be as much as the other areas that are more deforested, yeah.
But again, at some point in time, I've heard from people who will tell you it's because, say, specifically McKinney, it's because McKinney, the township of McKinney has a lot of hills. And that's one reason why at night it becomes extremely hot. But again, the other side of the argument will say, Kabbalah also has a lot of hills. Yeah. Why the difference?
They have vegetation. Yeah. And then also you can see, for example, it depends to the proximity of your building to the hills itself. Because if you have like a kind of a hill all over through your place, you're going to contain itself. So like the free movement of air, you're going to have obstacles. So the wind cannot just be passing like that. But also, as I also said you, there are component factors. Hills are one. And even if you have the hills, if you are the deforestation is being deforested to affect you, and then the rocks. If you have a hill and then you have your trees, you'll be fine, definitely, because for example, the trees and others will create the ambience that you're looking for. But for example, you go to Marken itself, these are rocky areas, right? You don't see most of the trees there, the rocks, and so what happened for these are limestone. They absorb most of the heat, and then the soil is being bared because the long rays that come from the sun is supposed to hit and go back as a short rays. But when it comes down, if there are dust particles and then there are obstacles, they're going to stay within the earth, and at night normally it's create that kind of like a discomfort. An example is, for example, if you are living in Freetown area, you go to a place like the Toke and other areas that have the trees, and so if you go to the tree areas, the Bure areas, at night, even the places where it's better compared to us living maybe in the central part of Freetown. No trees, no nothing. Absolutely. You get those things there.
But what do you also blame? Because those are the signs of urbanization. I mean, all this deforestation and the likes. How do we also fix this?
So there are a lot because we look at the long term and also the short term plan. So the short term plan, the short side that we could look at for your discomfort, is a cooling system. One, of course, if you have your AC, for you to be comfortable, and then also
AC
if you are
without regular power supply.
Maybe That is something we can discuss, but I think the other thing also we can look into is also like the clothing that we wear. So if I'm coming out, the place is very warm, I cannot get my black on, you know. So you put on your white, and so that at least there'll be a reflection. And then sometimes you make sure that you know when you're outside. Because sometimes if at the peak time, like 12 o'clock, and so when the sun is just up there, you come outside, you perspire a lot. So these are things to look at. And then the long-term plan normally that we can look to, that is all of us the government, because I'm part of the government. So one is like we have a lot of policies, the NAP, the NDC. We need to implement most of the actions within, because these are documents that have identified these risks, these problems, and have proposed a lot of recommendations that can apply in kind of a project. One of such is the tree planting. You know, you remember we've been doing this tree planting in Sierra Leone, the 1.5 million, up to I think 5 million trees for the past 5 years that were planted. So I think another thing that we have to look, because it's across the country, is for us, the citizens, to get the honors on ourselves, you know, to plant trees. Maybe if I go now to my brother compound where he's staying, or even to your place, the place is silent, no trees, you know. So we need to recalibrate again the way we design our places. So like, let's plant trees, and also policies like let's control our waste, because the waste also gives out some greenhouse gases, the methane, you know, that also interact and cause most of these things. And also, you know, the deforestation should be reduced drastically. And because these are things that can really help us to see how we can address some of these issues. And I think more so, I can always say is that we need to implement these policies, and also even the old vehicles. Okay. You know, there are countries, you see, they have already banned the age of vehicles. Because these vehicles give us greenhouse gases. You don't see them, but these guys are there. So it's compounded factors. It's not only bound on one, you know.
I know the statistics you've given earlier on, they are scientifically tested. But again, are they prone to fail?
The projection that we put. So yeah, it's very difficult for the outlook, and the only thing normally I tell people, to give the outlook is normally not a problem, because you have very good models. You know, science has improved a lot more. When I joined the Met Agency 14, 15 years ago,
thank you,
the forecast we were doing was like chatting. You write map, you draw, you watch, and then say, oh, it's going to forecast this thing again. But I'll tell you now what is happening. We now have weather that are automated. Data are coming. I don't need to have the staff sitting there. You just be in your office. I can log in now with my login in my phone. You see what is happening in Makini. You have software. Pass through the software. It tells you what is happening in the next 7 days or so. And then, but you, the expert, has to validate it, of course, with your expert knowledge. So I will tell you, it has improved a lot more. That's why you're seeing that now we are pushing. Before ever we started pushing the dry season forecast, we took up to 2 years to observe previous years of what has been the trend. And definitely it's been doing well. And that's why you see that we are pushing. Also, we make sure that we compare our outlook with also the world class. NOAA have done something a lot more, like for the whole of Africa. They have done something for the US itself. 40th Century in Germany have done something. Cumbria, they have done something on that. So the only thing we do now is using our own data to downscale, because they use satellite data. So we use our own data now and then to downscale what is happening. Maybe in the near future now, when we have a lot of data for points, then I will tell you, oh my brother, Makini is going, let's say, Kalbato is going to get this particular temperature. So let's say Padembaru is going to get this particular temperature. We can go there, but it's like when you have stations in those locations and the data.
You also mentioned the Harmattan season, which I don't know we have experienced or we're still experiencing it. Are we still experiencing it? Yes. And you mentioned the change in the pattern also. Can you elaborate on that?
So the Harmattan normally, you know, it starts from the likes of December, come to January, and then February it fades away. And the Harmattan is made of several parameters that make the Harmattan, dust particles, dry air, you know, and then you have the cool temperature. But for us, people that are not meteorologists, they only assert Harmattan to the dry air. It will destroy your lips, you know, you are dried up, you are walking with your Vaseline. And so when we look through, yes, the Harmattan is there, but not all the features are really showing out, you know, because some of them, because of our activities, you know, it has, of course, they are like more or less noticeable. So one that is visible, one is the dry air. The dry air is there. That's why, for example, even if you launder your clothes, you put it there without sun, few hours, it's dried up. If you put water on your skin, you go outside, you can see that it can dry up. You see when January started, it started with the cool temperature itself, and then the dust particle is there. You look into the atmosphere, you see a dust, and it's coming from what the Sahara Desert, but the northern zone is going to get a lot more because the proximity is very close to where it's coming from. So that's it. And then the only thing I would say is the temperature itself, because now it's above normal. So it's not as Harmattan as it used to be when it comes to the temperature. When it's cold, you put your cardigan on, you have to be very warm before you come. I will tell you, the other features are there. And for example, that's why I see that some people now are getting a kind of like flu. Myself, yeah. You know, so even when I do, yeah, so these are the things, you know. But I think the only thing we need to do is how we can educate people to really understand some of these things we are telling them, and then for us to take the measures. Because the idea here, why we are pushing all of this publication, is not for people to understand that Met is doing this, but also what can you do in your own way for you to protect yourself. Because if you have a lot of dust, then you can be careful how you work in dusty area, especially when construction are taking place all over Sierra Leone, most places, road construction and so, because now the wind has increased. So definitely it's going to pick up whatever dust particles around, and then these are the things.
So what do you consider as normal in terms of the weather during Harmattan?
Okay. So yeah. So the normal has to do with we look into the 30 years back. So like let's say Freetown, we use the 30 years data you averaged.
So what's
1994? So like Freetown, let's say Freetown was 28. So if it's 28, then it's normal for the temperature. But it's for the Harmattan season, into the peak period of Harmattan. We are in, for example, the Harmattan use in the morning hours used to be around like the 24, the 25, the 23 degrees Celsius. Even like during the daytime, you know, it can go, but it cannot go up to 30. So these are the things. But because those temperatures, we are not recording them mostly, and that's the reason. But just that in January, the early part of January, we recorded some reduced temperature. You know, there are places like the eastern part. I can tell, like Kalang, normally we used to record like 25 degrees Celsius, like the 24 degrees Celsius, even like the like of the southern part, and also some of parts of the coastal areas.
You know, the dry season also brings a lot of challenges. Example, even in the north, as you've mentioned, oftentimes you see if it's bushfires, water shortages, or other maybe heat-related illnesses or the likes. How do you also help bring out awareness to the public, or even your work with maybe the Ministry of Agriculture, because there are adverse effects that comes with the weather? So if it comes to farming or the likes, how does the ministry also help with regards your information as well to citizens?
Yes, that's very good. So that's why what we did on Monday, we invited MDs, key stakeholders, the health sectors and others, MDMA and others, even agriculture were invited. We pushed this to them, at least for them to understand what we've observed, and then for them to also go to align our outcome with their practices. So the next part we're doing also is we're going to develop bulletins. We might develop a kind of like a quarterly bulletins for farmers. So like this particular time, we're going to make a bulletin for the farming. Say, okay, this is the temperature was observed, and for certain areas, this is the XYZ they're going to face with. And then now we work with the Ministry of Agriculture to see what advice can they give. Because I think we'll be doing this with Slurry in Bont and then in Moyamba. These were our pilot areas. We came up with a planting calendars. But for now, we can just develop a kind of like a bulletin for people to read and then you understand. And then, of course, for them to know, for the farming calendars, what is happening now is like temperature is going to increase. So people need to maybe go into like drought-resistant crops or crops that you think that can resist particular temperature, which is good. And then also to see also that because of high temperature, it can also give rise to some pests. Because some pests can do very well when the temperature is high, but when it's cold, some of them they cannot survive. It's just like some of the diseases that we have there and some of the pests that we see here. You go to the white man's land, you cannot see because their temperature is quite different than ours, you know. So and then also we plan to go to 14 locations by next week, and for us to engage farmers and other stakeholders. It's not only farmers, other stakeholders, to understand what we've observed, and then for us to profile some of the recommendations, because we have recommendations, and then to see what they can do. And yesterday we also had a meeting with Irish Embassy, we of course closed door, and then also with the ACF on a certain project, of which we're also trying to roll out in most of these locations. So what we have committed to, even when we present our budget, is that this particular year, we really want to go into sensitization. because I can tell you, we have a lot of products now the Met is producing. So what we do with this product that we're producing now is that like now, it's time for people to understand and then for us to act, on most of these things. Even when it comes to recommendation, we make sure that we co-design that with other institutions.
Help the public understand the nexus between the Harmattan and water availability.
Yes. So yes, so the nexus between the water, because the water availability normally is niche to the temperature itself, because the Harmattan, when you have reduced temperature, what is happening? Less evaporation. That is, less water is going to be lost from the surface because the temperature is very less. So nothing is going to happen. Instead, what is going to happen when temperature is less, and in science call it condensation will happen. So instead, water molecules come together a lot, and normally it can come in the form of rain. That's why I see in the rainy season, because temperature is very less, not warm, we are getting rain. Because that time it creates the environment for the water vapor to come together. And then, but when the temperature increases, what happens? The rivers, because the place is very hot, temperature is going to, and the water is going to lose from the surface itself, and then it can reduce the volume. It's just like when you're cooking, you ignite with some fire. What happens? It will reduce, right? But if you put some water, for example, in your refrigerator when it's very cool, it's still there. Instead, what will happen? It can come together and then become a kind of like a frozen, So the nexus, everything with water availability has to do with what? The temperature. Reduce temperature, we are fine. Increase temperature, we lost a lot of water. For example, if you have a hydropower that relies on rivers, and so the water level definitely going to reduce. If, for example, our dam itself that maybe relies on the rainforest, the rain harvesting, or like say it's an open source, it's not a dam that is very close, because of the temperature, the volume is also going to reduce, normally leading to rationing of water resources, for example, in the areas, because you have to control the usage. And that's why even in our recommendation, we are asking that people use water efficiently. Sometimes when normally we talk with colleagues, people can use more than 2 buckets of water just to take their bath. I've seen in some countries, what happened? You go to the place after 5 minutes, the water stops again. You have to wait that it comes again. That's just a way people to control the water, So for us, the only thing, and still we are blessed, We have dams, we have, of course, the ocean. Those that are not doing desalination,
So the reason for that question is I've heard from so many people who tell you during the Harmattan, we tend to lose water because of the wind, so to speak. Is that the case?
Because of the wind?
Yeah, because of the wind, Harmattan, because the place is dry, and so the water in the river gets dried up quickly, so to speak.
Okay. So the Harmattan just bring a kind of like a dry air. So of course, definitely when you have a dry air, the effect is not going to be much when you compare. So when it comes to the water resource availability, it has to do with the temperature. If it's doing the Harmattan, now I tell you, Harmattan has features. If you have those particles in the Harmattan, and then there's a high temperature, you're going to lose a lot of water. So it's a temperature that really determines the volume of water. Other parameters is like something that are like kind of like negligible, that are really not counted on that.
With the change in pattern when it comes to our seasonal outlook, what other country, let's say maybe in West Africa as well, can you compare Sierra Leone to? Do you also do analysis and comparisons?
Oh, it's a good question. So the only thing I would say is when it comes to the dry seasonal forecast, most countries are not doing it. Most countries don't go into the dry seasonal forecast because under our UN body, the World Meteorological Organization, we only come together as countries and regions for the rainy seasonal forecast. Because the rainy seasonal forecast, we do in our different countries, and then we converge in a particular country. Last year, I think they met in Nigeria. Our staffs went there, and then we compare, and then we co-produce a map for the whole of West Africa, for all of Africa, what are we expecting. But really for the dry season, even Nigeria, they're not into that. Ghana, they're not really trying to see what is happening there. But like the likes of Niger and other Sahel countries that are very dry, they also do that. So for us now, I think it's Sierra Leone, because Guinea is not doing that, Liberia is not doing that. So the only thing that is available is online, that you can see what NOAA and maybe other research centers have done as far as the temperature trend is concerned. And most parts in Africa, for East Africa, normally what we observe is like above normal temperature. That is like from the worst class itself. But you can have like a research institute giving out an outlook, but it needs to be validated by what the country themselves with their own data. But from the satellite data, it's above normal for the West African part. But we use our own data also for us to downscale to see really what is happening, to see what is happening in the north, the east, then the west, and then the south itself.
And with the tools you also used, I mean, the reliance on technological or advanced modeling systems, the satellite images or data that you've just mentioned, how accessible are these tools to you here in Sierra Leone?
Okay, so like one thing for all Met services, like we are part of a body, a UN body called the World Meteorological Organization. They dictate the guidelines. So like we don't bring up the guidelines on our operations. So let's say when it comes to dissemination weather informations, they have a set of guidelines. Even when it comes to how you interpret temperature, the guidelines. So like whatever I told you, it is the same like you can do in the US and all that. The only thing, if you don't have the capability, you don't provide those services. You know, you even have environmental meteorology, but because now we are not much into that, we're not providing those services. You only do service that you can do, and then normally also they do service auditing. So these tools are given to us. Normally, some of them they have been bought, some of them I was on a free basis from the UN body. For example, you have the CPT, the climate prediction tool. Very fantastic tool, you know, that is available. All you need is like you put your data through, follow some few steps, it gives you the outlook. We have the Instant itself. It's like a tool developed by University of Reading in the UK. Very good. That can even tells you a lot of informations. So people are trained to use that. And then you also have some open source tools that are there online that we can use. But normally we have customized one on our end. Because like most of these tools, before ever we do a forecast, we do a kind of, they have what they call the handcast and the forecast. So they put a model in there that can predict back forward. Because before ever you predict, you have to predict the past events. What's happened in the past? Was it right? Did he predict it very well? And then you can predict the future. If not, you have to change again the handcast. So like, sometimes like we use more than like 100 of them. So it's not like a one-day thing. You use this, no. You use this, no. You like continue using until it back predicts very well, and it can tell you. And a lot of more. And now what is happening now is we have now this machine learning and artificial intelligence that is doing very well. Of course, most of us are programmers. We use our Pythons, and they name them. So sometimes we have codes that can just call your data, and it can tell you what is happening, okay, within the machine learning. But normally, the machine learning does not use the physics behind it. So researchers are still under it, because when it comes to forecasting for the weather, there are physics equations, but those physical equations are within the NWP, the numerical weather prediction tools that we have. So they are being built, a lot of equations behind it. So when you put your data, they play behind, and then you see what is happening. So I will tell you, I think we are now exposed to most of these tools, and I'm so impressed that even most of the university students are doing very well.
I think I really wanted to ask that. Do we have more people from university who actually, you know, tend to go into the same field?
I happen to be a lecturer at Frabe College on a part-time basis for a very long time. So we lecture at physics department in Frabe College, meteorology and atmospheric science itself. So this is something now, I think we started, they introduced this course in 2015. So now people are learning this. And then I think recently there was a student that even came to our department that had developed like a kind of an app. Interesting, an app. And he said when it's finished, he's going to give that to Met Agency. So I think now it's happening. And we even signed an MOU with Mitimagai and Technical College University. Sooner or later, they want us to start rolling out some short-term courses on metrology, on environment. The Director General was there, I think, last year also. Now we are trying to develop now the curriculum and then the course outline, so at least people can be doing this. Because, you know, it's missing. Those days, nothing around metrology was studied. We only recruit people that study physics, because you need to have a physics background. Because there's a lot of atmospheric physics, and then you come back, you go and study. But now it's happening now in the university, and what is how we can roll them out also to maybe to other places.
Quickly, still on these students, at the end of the day, do they get to write a research project which probably can be more developed, and later on, let's say, you either end up commercializing some of these projects, or what other options do they have when they leave university in maybe getting a job around Sierra Leone?
Yeah, so one thing is like the Met Agency is there. So because when you do those things, the Met Agency is there, there's airports, for example, because like when you're doing physics, it's just a one module, but there are other modules that you can do. So you can choose wherever you want to to specialize, you know. So and then also like the maintenance, I will tell you, there have been time we've been losing a lot of staffs when they are trained. In fact, some of them, they will just abandon their job because Liberia normally takes most of our staffs, you know. Sometimes they go, the FIR takes most of the staff. So that's why I encourage you, most of them to come in. Because some of them, because the moment you are trained, you have your license, you have the right to work in any airport. Some of them, they can see and then they can go. So that's the more reason I think we are trying to introduce this in the curriculum and then to have them more. You know, I remember, I think 3-4 years ago, I think it's 4 years now, we recruited around 24 staffs, and then most of them were from the university, you know, from Jala University, from Frabi College, with a physics background, and they have added a lot more to the service we are providing. And then, as he said, like the research that they do, we don't commercialize, I honestly tell you, but we build on their research. Like there was a student that did a research on machine learning approach for rainfall prediction using, for example, the Python package. The person wrote a very good script, and then there was an interesting, you know, focus that the person brought, and a lady. So currently, we are trying to bring her, like, to be with us, like, as an intern, for us to amplify that. And then 2 years ago, there was a student also that developed a kind of like an alarm system for flooding. Interesting. So they have a rain gauge, automatic rain gauge, and so that the moment the water reaches a particular level, it alarms and they send signal to the computer itself. But for that one, we lose that particular staff to Orange Sierra Leone. But there are people that are doing a lot of interesting things, but we're also trying to see ways how maybe they can be attracted. We also want to have a lot of staff because the staff strength is not much as compared, because imagine we are supposed to service the whole of Sierra Leone. We have a staff strength of 77. It's a lot more, and that's why I'm sitting there. I always do the forecast of course, myself. We want to have many people, so at least when you go to McKinney, someone is there in McKinney doing the forecast for McKinney. You go to maybe Binkolo or Batkan, someone is there, you have your PRO there. But now we do all the forecasts in Freetown, and then we send it down to the regions.
Let's look at how significant are the risk in all of what we're talking about this morning, and how much should we brace up as a nation in terms of the potential risk ahead?
So yes, so risks are just there for us to be very careful, because they are not disaster, because we cannot forecast a disaster. But with the risk, and then people ignore the recommendation, then it can cause a disaster. Sure. For example, because of the high temperature, you're going to have dry vegetation. And because of dry vegetation, if we are not careful with the use of the fire, what will happen? There will be wildfire outbreak. You know, over the years, not what have been happening around the Kabbalah axis. What have been happening around other areas, you know, villages being burnt down, farmland being burnt down. So these are some of the risks that we see. And then what we are advising people, one, maybe you can create a kind of like a fire buffer zone, you know, if you have your equipment. Like for us to have our weather stations that cost a lot of thousands of dollars, we make sure wherever we install our weather station, around the weather station, we make sure that you apply granites around the weather station. There is no grass around it. So even if there's a fire outbreak, it cannot transfer quickly there. Some people can dig around, you know. These are some of the strategies we can use.
Is that a preventive measure, using granite?
Well, that's what we use, yes. It's just like innovative measures, you know, when we discuss that. Just the thing is, like, we just want to create a buffer. Because by right, if you don't want the granite, you can just maybe remove all the grasses around there. But you know the vegetation, maybe within 2 to 3 weeks, then you have a new one coming again. Because we tried that, and then engineer advised us to use that. And that has been very effective for some of our weather stations. So people have to be very careful. We have our folks, our colleagues, you know, people that smokes, you know, around. They're just walking around. They can just throw away in the bush. If it's dry, it catches fire and then it continues. And then also, like when you have a dry temperature, it can exacerbate and also prolong fire outbreak. You know, when there's a fire outbreak everywhere, it cannot just be going down in few minutes, because one, the temperature is there, so it serves like as a catalyst to be more violent. So we're asking people, for example, if you're leaving your house, put the mains off, for example, because some of the electrical system, you never know what happens. If there's any spark, the place is hot,
right.
Problems happen. Like I do that always, put the mains off. If you have your freezer, because you have food that you want to be cold, I make sure you have your ice block to be there. So when you come back, and then you do what you can do. And also, for example, because we had the fire force was in our place, and one thing they complain about is like this installation of electrical appliances. You have people that are not professionals, so let's be bringing on board professionals to help him with those installations. And then, like because of the heat itself, you know, health-related disease will be occurring. You know, there are some certain times. Some people, maybe some of us, we are not sick, we are well, but some people that are ill, you know, like terminal disease itself, some high temperature, it's very difficult for them to breathe. You know, they would have asthma, and then you name them. So even the young, and then the old itself. So these are things we see, and then like for the agriculture sector as a risk. You know, we said the temperature is high,
sure,
prolonged dry spell. When you plant, it's going to affect the harvest itself, you know, all of these things.
So again, I wanted to ask on same. Aside the health risk, how in tune, how cooperative is the agricultural sector also in terms of the data you've just mentioned? Because they seem to face huge risk, most of the farmers.
No.
In country as we speak, we have minimal irrigation facilities.
Yeah.
See for the bigger farms in country, but many of the other areas lack irrigation facility. And when it's dry, when it's hot, it becomes a problem for agriculture.
Yeah, so like they've been very cooperative, and I would tell you, like especially the Minister of Agriculture, they have a kind of like a periodical review that they normally do, and then they normally ask for our data. So we normally share data with them because they also have some of their tools that they can use. We also normally share data with Slurry, you know, and also with other farmers. You have some farmers, for example, that they even ask for data. Just like 2 days ago, someone asked for data, say for around Potluck or Makeni axis, they want to go to farming. We provided the data for them, for them to understand. So people, I think, they're aware about that climate change is happening, and then the only thing they can do is like to use our data. So they've been there, and then also we used to work with them, of course, the Ministry of Agriculture, and also some of their extension workers. And then the good thing also I can say that there are certain projects now. For example, you have the FSRP project. You have a project with the ACF. Like the FSRP, I think they want to also to go into some irrigation practices. You have the AVDP project. So I think the thing goes beyond our mandates. For us, we advise, and then we give the advice to you, and the other institution needs to pick it up, you know, to implement at least their different processes.
All right, so I guess one of the messages from Facebook is from Mystic Dwazak, and he's asking what it takes to give out a forecast. Secondly, how realistic are the forecast updates you are given?
This one also reads, creating a buffer zone is good. 98% of the farmers in provincial areas apply their buffer zone by brushing around the perimeters of their farm in case of any fire outbreak.
And Swissman is saying yes. Abroad, our water heaters can contain 15 liters every 10 minutes because the water has to be processed. If you want to bathe, you can have hot water and cold water. That's why the water has been controlled by some company engineers who are responsible to install water heaters in every home.
Baka, you could respond to those messages for now. And
yes, I think some of them were comments, and the only one is what it takes to do a forecast and how realistic it is. So what it takes, one, you need to have the weather station that collect the data. So you have the station that collect data, the temperature, how is it, the rainfall, how much wind is coming, the wind, how severe is this, the soil temperature. So, you know, you need this number. It's just like when you're counting. If I say 1, 2, 3, 4, you say 5, eh? You say 5 because of the counting trend. So those data are going to predict what is going to happen. So you need to have the weather station. And currently now, the diverse station, we have more than 100 because we have like 60 rainfall station. We have other snow station. In fact, recently last year, we installed about 5 of the station around. So first you have the station, and then the second one is you need to have a trained staff. Yes, and which is very, very key. And the thing people need to know is for the meteorology, when it comes to training, is we have regional centers where you get your license. So we have our grade. You have like class 1, class 2. You have chartered meteorologists. For example, the DG myself, we have chartered meteorologists. We have like class 1 meteorology. We have forecaster. So you have educator, and because that's the thing, we are training how to use most of these tools. So for us, we have people that are trained. I cannot say they are much. We are less. People that are trained, and then we have those data. So because of this data and then the training, that's how we do the forecast, and then we push it up to public. Like to do a seasonal forecast, it can take like a week to develop a seasonal forecast to go to the public. for a daily weather forecast, every day our staff takes around 4 hours to develop, approximately 4 hours to develop the daily weather forecast that goes to the public. Realistic, I will tell you, we know the atmosphere is very chaotic. I will tell you, with the advent and the advancement in science and technology, tools are there that have really improved our forecast over the years. And you also can say that, check back 10 years ago when Met used to give a forecast compared to now. So even you, the person that they pushing out the forecast to the public, the ethical approach, you are so happy when the forecast is doing very well. So I can say for now, the model has improved, and because now is one. The only thing is that we are now trying to have like a homegrown model. We have like 7 models, but these are not homegrown. And we are trying to develop our own model to see maybe how it can also provide this. But for now, I can tell you, to the public, we're doing very well because we have a staff dedicated on a daily basis that do the forecast verification. And for us, I think the pass score has really increased, the hit one,
Is there any adequate funding and support that's been given to SLMet for your operational capabilities?
When it comes to money, actually when it comes to funding, no institution can say they are fine with that, because even when maybe the funding is fine, but you want to have more, maybe to advance. So the government has provided funding for us, and also because of climate change related issues, also been participating in projects and programs. So for us, we'll continue using this fund, and as we try also to see how we can have more fund going forward. I will tell you, on a yearly basis, yes, we get funding from the government of Sierra Leone, of course, pays our service, and also have some projects that we're also participating in.
What are some of the challenges the agency faces when, you have to come up with the weather forecast and, even in producing the seasonal outlook?
So the first challenge normally when it comes to the generation is like data availability across, because seasonal forecasts need a minimum data for 30 years. So there are places, that's why you see now we only do for the regions. So let's say in the southern part of Sierra Leone, let's say if I have 5 stations, I just take maybe if it's for temperature, the average, if for rainfall, also the average, and then you see it represents the southern part. You understand? So that's how we cannot go to district level. So the constraint is like we are yet to have weather station in all districts, all chiefdom, so that we can provide like forecast, and then for example seasonal outlook for most of these areas. But when it comes for the daily weather forecast, because daily weather forecast, you just need the weather station that you can try to calibrate against your model output. For them, I think we are giving out to up to 9 locations currently, because they're the areas where we have data, and then also we have stations there. But with the addition of 5 stations that we had, and also 2 and 1 from the ACF, we're also going to expand the coverage. So as we go by, we'll make sure we expand. These have been some of the challenge. And then also another challenge is the staff strength, and of course, and that's what we are trying to work on, like this year, to see how we can attract more staff and to be on board to try to help for us to really make our service known and also being accepted also in every part of the country, because it's not only Freetown, it's not only Makeni. Even people in Batkano need this forecast. Even people in Roktenfunk need it, So it's not only us, at least we need to also be providing those information to them.
Do you outsource staff? Maybe outside Sierra Leone as well?
The only way we outsource is like when we want to do a training. That's the time we talk to our regional bodies, for example, agreements, because they have the center for training. We bring them. That's the time also we even brought someone from the UK with the help of the World Bank. They came, we developed a kind of like an SOP, and also staff we are trained. So we do that, we have to do with money, because when they come, you have to pay for their service, and then they get back. Even this year, we've planned to do 2, one for the aviation sector, where we don't have an expert, a colleague that has been there for a very long time, to come and train our staffs at the aviation, at the airport. And then also for the agricultural sector, someone from Agrimet is going to come to train. And this is also as a support from a project, the AVDP. So the good thing is, like when there's a project, we make sure that we align our visions and all of our challenges we have within the project, so that at least they can solve some of the challenges that we face with.
Has Met been consistent in aspects of its daily weather updates?
Yes, we've been consistent, and the only thing is like the pushing period, because the time that we push the forecast always be at 5 o'clock.
Is there an update for today?
Yes, there's an update for today.
Because I've not seen it. Most times I check your page, but I've not seen that one.
The Facebook page? Okay, but I think it's sent through the WhatsApp. These are the things that happen. Normally we concentrate more on the WhatsApp, because like for the WhatsApp, it's like we have a forecaster. The minute they develop it, 5 o'clock they push it, and then we have now a staff now that control our Facebook page that normally upload. So normally that's why even when we are trying to develop our the SOPs, when it comes to the information dissemination time, we give ourselves a pass score of 85 because it's not 100%. And we are trying now this year for us to go to 100%, so at least when it's 5 o'clock, it goes to the public, and then also the person from the PR side can upload. But when it comes to the at least the WhatsApp, it goes. Except I think 2 days ago, I was so happy. No, someone called. I said, "Oh, so they need this forecast," because I thought people just need this during the dry season. And then someone called and then said, "The forecast has not come. Something have delayed." And then I have to call, and then of course the forecaster said they sent it in the group. But particularly the person was, the forecast was saying they will try to send it back. But we are trying to make sure that about every day the forecast go, because normally it has to be 1 hour lead time. You send it at 5 o'clock, but the forecast itself starts from 6 o'clock. So you need to give people 1 hour ahead to understand what they're expecting for the day ahead.
Okay, it's been a pleasure having you this morning. I think this one touches on society itself, because it has to do with life and livelihood of people, more so when the health and agriculture are concerned with the conversation this morning. But it's been a pleasure having you this morning to talk on this all-important forecast, for the seasonal outlook for Sierra Leone. We'll continue this conversation. It's a conversation that will continue. But nonetheless, thank you so very much.